Podcast COUG Season 3, Episode 10.
You're listening to the Podcast COUG Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast COUG is your weekly COUG On Demand show featuring all things COUGS and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, Podcast COUG.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Podcast COUG. I am James Laurie, the Podcast COUG, and you are listening to the Podcast COUG, where all things are Cougar football. 30 minutes of COUG talk. We're talking about Colorado and our upcoming game against Arizona, the Cats in Pullman, in Pullberg on Saturday night. Hey, speaking of Pullman, we're putting together Linda Finch and I. Linda Finch, the WSU traveling Cougars, right, from the 80s, right? She's been around for 30, 40 years. Linda and I are hooking up, and the Podcast COUG, yours truly, and Linda Finch of the WSU traveling Cougars, we're putting together a couple of chartered buses, all right? These are 2018 modern, just rolled off the assembly line, brand new. In fact, they're like a week old, right? I mean, can you believe that? They're either 2018 or 2019 models that are a week old. We've got two buses lined up for Eastern Washington. It's Spokane, Pullman, Tri-Cities, Western Washington, Bellevue, Tacoma, Vancouver, heading to Santa Clara. That's the Pac-12 Championship game in Santa Clara on, now the game's on the 30th, right? That's exactly a week from the AC. That's 5 p.m. We're leaving on the 29th at around 7 o'clock, okay, both on the west bus or the east bus, depending on where you're living. Prices are going to be great. And, you know, it really beats driving yourself. I mean, that's a 14-hour drive, right, to Santa Clara, which is the Bay Area, right? So it's going to be a road trip, and Wi-Fi and AC power outlets. It's going to be a lot of fun, and the prices are going to be good, too. I'm going to put it on our website if you want to check it out. We've got a website coming. I don't want to give that website out yet. We're just making some final touches on the trip, so be looking for the website. Either you could find it on Wazoo Watch or Die Hard Cougs or Coug Fan, right? Or Linda Finch, WSUTravelingCougars.com. So we're going to have a great. I've been working on this website for a couple of days now, so it's everything's coming together. Hopefully, we're going to be able to sell out the buses. If not, we're going to refund everybody's money. Or if we lose, now we got to win that AC, right, in Pullman against the Huskies. If we do lose the Apple Cup, then all of that money is going to be refunded to every single ticket holder, less the service charge fees from the Stripe credit card company. So that's about like $8.55, like $9, right? So anyway, be looking for that. It's the Pac-12 Championship COUG Express, and should be a lot of fun. Anyway, magical season continues. Saturday, it was, of course, 5,000 feet above sea level. Rocky Mountains. I love going skiing there every couple years to the Rockies. I love going skiing in the Rocky Mountains. It's just amazing. They have resorts, the world-class resorts. If you're a skier, you know what I mean. If you're not a skier, you don't care. But the 8th-ranked COUGs played a complete game on defense, forcing 3 turnovers in the second half. Gardner accounted for 3 TDs, 335 yards. Washington State blew past the Buffs 31-7 at Folsom Field. Again, number 8 this week in the playoff rankings. 6 consecutive wins, and we're 9-1. Right? CU lost its 5th game in a row. They're going 5-5, and so COUGs missed 2 early opportunities to score touchdowns, twice moving the ball to Colorado's 20-yard line. Washington State turned the ball over on downs for the first time, then squeezed out a 39-yard field goal from Blake Mazza on the second. And then by that point, the Buffs were already in front, right? I mean, CU took its first and only lead of the game after Trevon McMillan's big run up the middle netted the Buffs 64 yards, and McMillan capped off the drive with a 3-yard touchdown run. But the COUGs took the lead good early in the second quarter. All right, we just never looked back. Right, Minshew threw a swing pass to Borghi, who scooted to the sideline and dodged a few Buffalo defenders before hitting the end zone with a 28-yard score. Both both offenses were flat, right, for the rest of the half. As the Cougs went to the locker, it was just 10-7, right, with the Cougs up 10-7. And then in the opening second half, Buffs didn't hold the ball very long. In fact, we just dominated that ball control. But Jihad Woods stripped the ball from McMillan, and Peyton Pallure hopped on it, giving the Cougs possession on the 32-yard line. Minshew and the offense were not bad, completing passes to three different receivers before going to Renard Bell on a quick out route on the goal line for a 1-yard TD. And so, the Cougs just continued to pour it on, screen pass to Minshew, from Minshew to Patman, 48 yards. 5 plays later, it was 24-7. So Cougs defense allowed a second turnover of the half while Willie Taylor forced Chenault, their star Chenault, to fumble on the 32. We just shut down Chenault, by the way. 7 plays, 56 yards later, the Cougs were back in the end zone, 3-yard rushing touchdown from James Williams, and the Buffs eventually pulled Montez from the game. Less than 4 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. Colorado finished fewer than 300 yards, remember, and if you remember last year, they were shut out 28-0 in Pullman. We just shut them out 28-0. So Colorado's, they've got some recruiting issues. They've got some, they've got a lot to do here. Probably an upcoming new coach, and they've got some players, but they really got to rebuild, right? So then they put in backup quarterback Neuer. He was intercepted by Cadron Williams, giving up the Cougs' third turnover of the game. That's a season high. We had 3 turnovers on that game against Colorado. So let's talk about Mad Max. Max Borghi, right? The guy's a freshman, right? Just quickly making a national name for himself. And he's just getting started, you guys. I mean, right? Just getting started. Max Borghi left for Washington State in January, right? And just dominated when he was in Colorado at high school. Pomona High, he led the high school as Pomona to a 5A state champion title, and he won the Gold Helmet Award as a senior, which is the state's most outstanding player. So we are lucky to have him. McIntyre recruited him early on, but he didn't follow up with Borghi. I get that. I'm in real estate, right? If I don't follow up with prospects, they're not clients yet, but if I don't stay in touch with people that I, occasionally meet, whether it be in an open house or what, if I don't just stay in, they're gone. There's no guarantee, right? So McIntyre recruited Borghi, really wasn't on him very often. In fact, very seldom. Just assumed that Max was he's a local guy. He's just going to sign with the Buffs in the meantime. Gets an offer from Stanford, and Leach was on Borghi almost weekly, calling him and staying in touch. It's a relationship business, right? I mean, it really is. And when you don't stay in touch with people, things go kind of stale. So I think McIntyre, he's a great coach. He knows a lot, but you also gotta work your recruiting, and that's, nobody likes to always be, there's things in life, every job, there's something that you don't like to do, and I get it, right? So sometimes we got to get out of that comfort zone. But Borghi's just been great. By middle of fall camp, he was in the second back in our air raid alongside with James Williams. I mean, he's just, ever since he's landed at Washington State, Max Borghi, the Mad Max, has been great. So had a great homecoming in front of his home. Gosh, over 300 friends and family watching him in the stadiums, and having with the Cougs having the best season of the Pac-12. How do you like that, right? So Colorado's lost 5 in a row. Here we are 9-1. So it's pretty interesting. So 300 friends and family, and Borghi had 72 yards and a touchdown, 31-7. Was the final blowout score in Folsom, and Borghi for the season's he's got 283 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 4 receiving TDs. So In all, it's just a typical day for Max, as he's ranked, 7th in the nation in catches as a running back. So, he's able to run, pass, and protect, and he's carved out a key role for himself in the Minshew era. And despite the fact that Borghi hasn't broken more than 100 total yards in any given afternoon or any game this year, still, he's just getting started. Max Borghi, growing popularity on Twitter. And, it's just going to be, it's just getting started. So here we are, right? So anyway, let me see. We are looking at some stuff, a lot of different things we're talking about. We're Tay Martin. Gosh, where's he been lately, right? Tay Martin, our best receiver. He's just been missing some opportunities. We got to get Tay back on track. I think he's just in a little slump, but he'll be back. We're giving credit to, again, Tracy Clay's just killer defense. Jihad Woods is just super talented. Peyton Palouse is the coach on the field. We thought we would just be devastated with Herc gone, and from last year, Hercules Monoff, and we've replaced Herc with other guys. So we're just our line is just one defensive line is just great. We're leading the Pac-12 in sacks. Did you know that? We're leading the Pac-12 in sacks. That's crazy, right? So we've just stepped up in all areas on this team. I said it before, said it last week, the week before. We've upgraded every position, every coach, every player. So pretty amazing, magical season. Remember, Minshew is on that O'Brien semifinal list. He's one of 16 semifinalists for the 2018 Davey O'Brien Award, given annually for the best quarterback in college football. Now, coming up, there's a date, November 19th. They're going to announce the semifinalists, and then the winner will be December 6th. That is going to be exciting. I have a feeling that Gardner Minshew is going to win. My prediction is he's going to win the Davey O'Brien Award. So, we know he gets the ball out quickly. Speaking about, Gardner gets the ball out quickly. It's hard to convert in the red zone with this style of offense unless, you've got precise timing and accuracy to hit briefly open windows that can be found when bodies start to pack into tight spaces. And Gardner, it's a challenge, but he's still doing it. He hasn't let us down. He gets the job done. He also allows the Cougs to use some zone reads and makes it easier to run the ball from the 4 receiver sets. So when you take the effective pocket passer and add any degree of mobility, it's generally a final piece to the puzzle for a great spread offense. It's just people fear us. Arizona is coming to town. We're 9-1. Go up to Flagstaff. If you guys know anything about Arizona, you do. Phoenix is 110 degrees in the summer, 75 right now in Tucson. Go up to Flagstaff where it's colder and put on shorts and short sleeves. And Flagstaff's is up in the mountains. It's not Phoenix. And I would practice up there because when you hit Polberg on Saturday night when it's 35 degrees, and they're coming in on Friday, right? But they'll adapt to the weather. It's going to be cold Saturday night, right? It's colder in Western Washington and Eastern. It's cold everywhere right now, except for in Arizona. And so people are saying, is that going to be an impact? Well, we always say it will be, but I don't know. It could be. So anyway, we've been consistent, and like I mentioned before, Gardner has never let us down ever. Not USC, that wasn't a letdown. It's not his fault. So, right. So, hey, Pac-12 Championship game and Rose Bowl ticket requests are on sale. This reserves your space. So, if you CAF member or non-CAF, jump on board and get your Pac-12 Championship booked and reserved, and the Rose Bowl tickets reserved, right? They're not going to run your credit card unless we are in, but it just holds your place. 2 games left. It's, as you know, it's the Cats and the Dogs, and the Dogs win out by, they win the North by winning out. Speaking of the Dogs, this sounds crazy, but I'm taking my daughter to Husky Stadium on Saturday. I am, I'm not going to be in Pullman Saturday night, and she's never been at Husky Stadium, and I want to just take her to, it's going to be sunny take her to we're gonna be Oregon State fans on Saturday. That's right. Do I have any orange Oregon State? I don't. I don't have any gear for Oregon State anywhere. But we're going to be Oregon State fans wearing our COUG gear at Husky Stadium on the 50-yard line, and we're going to be rooting for a miracle on Montlake, and it does happen. It does happen. It does. I mean, it does. So is it possible? Yes. And I'd say it's a 10% chance that Oregon State's going to win, but it is possible they could just literally play their lights out and want to win that game more than Montlake does. And wouldn't that be great sitting there in Husky Stadium with my daughter and Oregon State wins the game? And guess what? We're in. Not only are we're the Pac-12 North champs, but we're into the Pac-12 Championship game in Santa Clara. So we can afford to lose Arizona, but we can't afford to win the Apple Cup. We've got to beat the Huskies to prevail for Pac-12 North and the championship games. So anyway, we've seen it before in the AC. Obviously, we have 5 years in a row we haven't showed up. But 9-1 feels pretty good. This team's different season, and it's going to be great. We've got challenges. There's always challenges to overcome, and Tracy Clay and Gardner has always found a way to win, especially Tracy Clay on defense. Just been incredible. So we're playing harder and creating more turnovers, creating big plays, red zone turnovers, and everybody in the conference, every team, every player, every coach is respecting Washington State this year. Everybody. Pretty amazing. Hey, we're going to be right back to talk about Arizona, the Wildcats, the Cats, next, right here on the Podcast COUG.
Hey, COUG fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the Podcast COUG Radio Network. The Podcast COUG is your weekly COUG On Demand show featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at podcastcoug.com.
Welcome back to the second half of the Podcast COUG. I am James Laurie and the Podcast COUG, and the COUGS in Arizona. Number 8 Washington State extends its 6-game Pac-12 winning streak when it takes on Zona, the Cats, Saturday night. Pullman, it's going to be cold. ESPN National TV. After dark, it's going to be 10, 11 p.m. and Eastern, the East Coast, right? So a lot of people that are not going to see the game, but a lot of people that are. And fun Saturday night. Leach took over. Remember, Washington State program way back. He took over when Leach took over 4-32, 4 dreadful conference seasons. And he really dug us out. And since then, the COUGS are 35-14. So, and that's more victories in a 4-year period than any time in Arizona history. That's crazy, right? Arizona's won 2 in a row coming off a bye, getting Tate in comfortable situations. He runs the ball, passes the ball. Khalil Tate, dangerous Tate. He can get us in the air and from the ground. The guy's quick, makes smart decisions, very tough to stop. And, they're Arizona is kind of on a roll, 2 in a row. They know this game means a lot for them, right? And we found last year Khalil Tate to be incredibly dangerous in Tucson. I mean, he was just tore us up. He beat us, right? He just tore us up. unstoppable. So he's a little healthy now. We simply are going to have to move the ball against him. Let's give it to Max, give it to Borghi, right? So Arizona hasn't been as good as hoped for. This is Kevin Sumlin's first season coming to this game. He came from UT, I believe, from Texas. Coming to the game Saturday, Arizona's won 2 in a row, and they do have a shot outside of winning the Pac-12 South. That's crazy, right? So they're 5-5. If the Cats win their final 2 games, and Utah loses at Colorado on Saturday, the Cats are going to, be the Pac-12 South champions. So can Arizona, a 10-point underdog, overcome the odds against the Cougs? I mean, think about this. If they win out and Utah loses on Saturday to Colorado, there is a chance they'll be Pac-12. That'd be very, very interesting to play. Well, if they win out, and then if we beat the Huskies, and then we're in the Pac-12 Championship, that would be very interesting and strange to face the Cats in Santa Clara. I don't see them happening, but you never know. It is definitely possible. So they're in a tough spot, right? They need one more win to be bowl eligible to get their little trophy bowl, right? And 6 games. I think everybody gets a trophy. You got a 6-year-old playing soccer, and everybody gets a trophy. I have a problem with the 6 games, but it's good revenue for the schools, and it's great ego. And I'll tell you, I'm not gonna bash a team that gets into a Cheez-It Bowl at 6-5 or 6-6 or something like that. I'm not gonna. I'll keep my comments to myself, right? But they do have a shot at getting bowl eligible. All they need is one more game, and so a lot is riding here for both teams. Neither of them have a clear advantage when it comes to motivation. I mean, think about it. We're not really we can lose. We're fine all day long. I mean, we'll be 9-2 if we lose, but we don't have to win on Saturday night. We have to win on the 17th. Is it 17th, 23rd? The 23rd, 5 p.m. at the Martin Stadium, AC, right? That's the game we have to win and not be looking ahead. So we're going to say this before, as I mentioned last week and the week before, we're 1-0, right? We are 1-0. We're not 9-1. We are 1-0 going into Pullman with Arizona. That's the way you got to look at it, right? So the reality is the Cougs are simply too good at Martin for the Cats to overcome. They simply are, and the Cats are 1-3 on the road this season. So even though they won 2 in a row, they're 1-3. The Cats could upset us, and they could lose by 6 TDs, 6 touchdowns. We could just steamroll them. Who knows? Nobody knows the outcome. That's why you see the podcast Coug, MI Coug, never gives a prediction on Wazoo Watch. There's always a thread every single week. Great, it's fun. Throw your predictions. But I don't know anybody who can predict the future accurately all the time. So, it's fun, right? I mean, so we could win by 6 touchdowns or we could lose the game. Who knows? It could be a huge upset. But we'll still be fine, right? We'll reload and be ready for the Dogs on the Apple Cup. But the reality is the Cats are playing the number 8 team in the United States, in the country, on the road, in cold weather, and they might be in bad shape. Is it a trap game? Kind of. Not really. I think we're fine. I think we're going to be fine. And the Cats have played their best for the season, their last 2 games, really, and they're coming off of a bye week. And they've got time. They've had some time with some nagging injuries to heal. So that is a little bit of a momentum. 2 games in a row they've won. They're coming off of a bye week. Negative is they're coming into Pullberg at 35 degrees on Saturday night. It's going to be very chilly and very cold. So, Khalil Tate, will the off week be beneficial for Tate? We're going to see. He's battled through a nagging ankle injury. So, but he's extremely effective on running the ball and in the air, and it could be a shootout with Gardner. Kevin Sumlin, first-year head coach, he's got his hands full. And like I mentioned earlier, he should have taken his team up to Flagstaff, practice with gym shorts and short sleeves. Flagstaff is much colder than the desert, right? So where it's 75 right now. So there's the situation that we don't need to win the game to go to the Pac-12 Championship. We just need to beat the Dogs. Simple as that. Speaking of the Dogs, like I mentioned, I'm going to the game on Saturday, taking my daughter, and we're rooting for the Beavs. That's right. We're in Husky Stadium. And I just want to give her another. She's never been to Husky Stadium. I don't want to have her live her whole life not getting or seeing Husky Stadium. She's not been on campus, and it's going to be dark when the game's over, so I don't think we're going to take a foot on the campus and show her Red Square. But, I mean, a little diversity is nice to show her some other campuses around instead of just going to Washington State, right? So that's the idea. And go Beavs, by the way. Go Oregon State. So, hey, we're Clay Helton, right? Let's talk about Clay Helton. They're 5-5. USC. A little, it's not about Clay. He's a really good, capable coach. He's intelligent. And it's about his staff. I mean, we're talking about USC as 5-5 right now, and why, right? So, my opinion, he just didn't. You need the right guys on the bus. The right guys on the bus. He didn't hire the right people. He just didn't hire a very good staff, and his staff doesn't like to recruit. Now, this is so true, you guys. USC just did a very poor job at recruiting, and I'll tell you why. Right? It's all about recruiting. It's all about recruiting the right guys. They don't have to be 4-stars or 5-star guys or 4 stars, but they didn't follow up. Now look at Borghi. Remember how McIntyre didn't follow up with Borghi and just thought Borghi was canned up, and here came Stanford, and then Leach was calling Max on a weekly basis, and Borghi committed to Washington State. So Helton, I believe he didn't hire the right staff because they're not going after recruits. So this is what happens. So USC tends to be behind on the recruiting rankings every year, all the way until December 3rd or 4th, December 3rd or 4th. And then they do. Then they race out and they go out to the kids that are not committed yet and don't have any firm commitments. And so what they're doing is they're poaching. And and you're picking up the steam late. And again, they race out, go around to the kids that are not committed yet, and they don't have they don't have any hard, firm commitments, and try to poach them. And you can do that, but one, you can save your class. But remember, the kids that you're poaching are the ones. They're the ones that are waffling, right? So real committed kids commit verbally, and they're the ones that say, "This is my place. I'm in. I'm in. I'm committed." They don't waffle, all right? So they tend to work harder. That's the difference. Kids that recruit, we're getting a ton of guys committing to Washington State right now, and they're saying, "I'm in. This is my place," right? They're not holding back. They're not waffling. Their vision is clear. They know what they want. They're not choosing a school to try to impress their friends, their families, and their loved ones, or their high school coaches, right? And they're not trying to, for a jersey on the name, the logo, the jersey, all that stuff. So what you're getting are waffle recruits making decisions that are very selfish. Whatever's best for them. Now think about this. Whatever's best for them, right? Whatever looks good, whatever looks great, a brand name, whatever it's going to make them feel better, look better to others with their peer group. Those are the ones that are going to flip late, right? And I'm gross generalizing here, but clearly there's some time that guys have to change their commitments. But what I'm saying is that when you go out and do poaching, and you're going to get 80 to 90% of the time, you're going to get kids that quite frankly don't understand how to work hard, how to commit. They might be talented, right? They're talented. Of course they are. They're 4-star guys. But they're going to the school with the rich tradition, and they're doing it for the uniform and what's on their back and their jersey. And again, this is just a gross generalization. So what you see, that's what you see from USC. some talented yet undisciplined guys and a team that just doesn't generally have a lot of great guys up front. They can't, they can't poach those guys up front. It's very difficult to do. I mean, so this is why you have USC the way you do. You've got guys that are not necessarily working very, very hard. They didn't commit early. They waffled. They wanted to go to USC because the name USC. And it's so important to have that glue, to have that leadership, to have that hard work instilled in you. And if you just show up because you're going to the Notre Dames or the UCLAs, there's so many schools like that. And we pick up guys that they want to roll up their sleeves and go to work. They're the ones that are committing early. They're not the ones sitting back and waffling. So that's my theory on where USC is right now. And Helton, and he's in the hot seat right now. So pretty. I mean, look at our commits. Look at Leach and Phelps, right? And Borghi is an example. We've our offensive lineman. I mean, it's just amazing what is happening right now at recruiting at Washington State. So there's a huge buzz that's going to continue as long as we've got Mike Leach, right? I mean, it's snowballing like crazy. So, hey, don't forget, we're putting together Linda Finch of WSU's Traveling Cougars and myself, the Podcast COUG. We're putting together a couple of chartered buses. These are special 2018-2019 modern buses for the Pac-12 Championship Game Express, the COUG Express. Heading down, and there's going to be a western bus and an eastern bus, Bellevue, Tacoma, Vancouver, and then Spokane, Pullman, and Tri-Cities, all the way to Santa Clara. It's a 15-hour bus ride. It's going to be a lot of fun, and all the details. There's a website coming up. We're going to launch that. I believe it's going to be tomorrow, and prices are going to be very reasonable. The details are like we're leaving the 29th at 7 p.m., right? 7 p.m. on the 29th. That's Thursday. The game's on Friday, by the way, at 5 o'clock. We're going to show up at Santa Clara, Levi Stadium around noon, around 11 o'clock or noon. The game's at 5. We're going to have 5 hours, right? And then we're going to be back and home around 2 p.m. on Saturday. So that's going to be fun. Remember, you've got to reserve your Pac-12 Championship tickets and your Rose Bowl tickets, and that's all about it for the episode. This episode of the Podcast COUG. We're going to catch you next week. Until then, have a great Saturday, right? And go Cougs.
You've been listening to the Podcast COUG Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast COUG is your weekly COUG On Demand show featuring all things COUGS and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast COUG Radio Network. Find us at PodcastCoug.com.
N-G-T